U.S. Central Command was born out of concern that the rising Islamic revolution in Iran might spill over into the Persian Gulf, a major throughway for global energy. In the early 1980s, this terrifying scenario became real, testing CENTCOM's ability to guide combat forces for the first time. At the end of the 1970s, the Iranian Revolution inflamed already rising tensions with Iraq, Iran's neighbor to the west. In September 1980, a long history of border disputes between the two regional powers came to a head. Iraq invaded Iran. The Iraqi army performed well at first and looked to secure an early victory over Iran. However, Iranian defenses held the fighting ground to a violent stalemate. By 1982, the war's momentum shifted decisively in favor of Iran. The Iran-Iraq War lasted most of the 1980s and became one of the bloodiest conflicts of the late 20th century. Casualties for both armies numbered in the hundreds of thousands. At first, the war was fought exclusively on land.
At the start of the war, both sides agreed to keep the sea lanes open. They essentially agreed to allow global commerce to flow through the Persian Gulf without interference.
This changed in 1984. With the ground war at a stalemate, Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein increased the tax on Iranian oil exports at sea. Iran retaliated. A new phase of the fighting emerged, the tanker war.
In 1986, things get even more serious. Iran announces a full blockade of military cargo headed for Iraq and starts challenging ships headed for the Strait of Hormuz. Shortly thereafter, the Iranian Navy stopped an American cargo ship in international waters near the Persian Gulf. No one was hurt, the ship was eventually released, but it was a very embarrassing incident for the United States. At this point, the American administration is drawn into the tanker war.
On May 17, 1987, it became clear just how dangerous the Persian Gulf had become. An Iraqi fighter jet fired 2 missiles at the USS Stark, a U.S. Navy missile frigate supporting CENTCOM. The strike killed 37 sailors and injured 21. Iraqi officials said the targeting of the U.S. warship was accidental. To protect the free flow of Kuwaiti oil through the Persian Gulf, in July 1987, CENTCOM launched Operation Earnest Will, the largest naval convoy operation since World War II.
It's largely forgotten to history, but the U.S. was engaged in a 14-month low-grade war with Iran at sea during Operation Earnest Will. Almost immediately into the convoy mission, an American tanker hit Iranian naval mines.
In April 1988, CENTCOM sent Iran a clear message that attacks on shipping vessels would not stand. CENTCOM struck Iranian surveillance facilities and naval ships with coordinated pinpoint attacks. It was Operation Praying Mantis, a stunning display of American combat power. The Iran-Iraq War was devastating. It was one of the largest and longest conventional wars since the Korean War armistice came into effect in 1953. 500,000 lives were lost. Another million were injured. The economic cost of the Iran-Iraq War exceeded $1 trillion, and it marked the last time chemical weapons were used on a massive scale. Yet, in the end, very little had changed.
Despite all the drama, all the bloodshed, all the violence, the Iran-Iraq War resolved nothing in terms of the boundaries of the two countries. The battle lines barely moved. The war hopelessly ground to a stalemate, and both sides finally agreed to a ceasefire on August 20th, 1988. So there was no resolution, no victory, only loss, only violence. But the war was so massive in scope, so stunning in its sweep, that it led to numerous aftershocks that rippled throughout the region. One of them arrived just 2 years later in Kuwait.